Finally, while our fighter boys were taking care of the main gang, one of them managed to slip through and come down on us from 6 o'clock, smacking the Bill's top turret gun.
We try to teach them, they just won't learn.
Might have been a stranger. 109?
190. Ask Bill, it was his pigeon.
Got him just before he started the roll, sir, with the second burst.
Pilot bail out?
No, sir, that 190 blew up like a room full of gas.
Good. Thanks, fellas. 1 destroyed, 1 damaged.
Okay, gang, let's go.
Hey, wait a minute.
Here we go again, fellas. The 190s have a white nose, a yellow leading edge.
And pink ribbons on their tails?
Did they fly in from the north, south, east, west, or vice versa?
Yeah, and what color were the Jerry's eyes? Have a heart, Mac.
We went out, planted our stuff, had a fight, and came back, sir. That's all there was to it.
What good is all that stuff, Mac? What's it prove?
Come around some rainy day, I'll show you.
Say, if you can prove that somebody reads that intelligence junk and makes it mean something, I'll give you my undivided attention for 11 minutes. How about it?
What do you mean?
Okay, joyriders, you asked for it. Gather around. Jim?
Now, look, we were only fooling, Mac.
I've been looking for a chance like this.
Now, look what you've done. Will you ever learn to keep
Come on. You've used up 1 of my minutes already. Now, look, at least you've heard of intelligence.
But we ain't never seen it, sir.
You're going to, right now. Now, this oversized poop sheet is an A2 chart. This shows how all the stuff, all this information about the enemy, comes in, where it goes, how it comes back out again as intelligence. That is, combat intelligence brought in by you combat pilots and crews. Photo intelligence, ground intelligence, and other kinds we don't talk much about, I'll get to later. But this shows you where all of our stuff goes to and what happens to it in the process.
Shows who?
All right, think of it this way. Think of it as the human body, and of intelligence as the bloodstream that keeps it alive. Let's begin with the fingers. That's us, squadron intelligence officers. We dig out the information. Yes, and tough work it is. Bits and pieces, unverified, one-man reports, everything we can dig out of you. Details we have been asked to watch out for, tactics, altitudes, directions, types, combat results, and lessons. This is the sort of military information that we send back through intelligence channels, just as the fingers send back blood through the veins. First it goes to the hands, group intelligence, where the various squadron reports are fused and coordinated in the same way the hand coordinates the activities of its fingers. And then on up through the veins, or intelligence channels, to the arms, or wing intelligence. For local reasons, here in North Africa, wing commands are not used, although they are part of standard Air Force organization and are used in some other theaters. Fighter command, bomber command, air support command, special commands, these are fed with information by their respective squadrons, groups, and wings, which have to some extent consolidated, evaluated, and interpreted the information as they pass it along. They may and do use the information against their own direct and immediate enemies. At the same time, they send it on up to the heart of the whole intelligence organization, Air Force A2. In the body, the heart has the blood charged with oxygen by the lungs, giving it new force, new value, before it is pumped back out to every part of the body. Intelligence procedure is almost identical. All this information of the enemy being fed into Air Force Headquarters intelligence is purified, in a sense, by the processes of consolidation, evaluation, and interpretation. In addition, it receives new values and new force from other branches of Air Force intelligence, such as photo intelligence, technical intelligence from captured material, intelligence from prisoners of war, from espionage, from scientific devices, and from other headquarters. And now, finally, as combat intelligence, it is pumped out again, disseminated, to commands, to wings, to groups, and finally to the squadrons, to me as squadron intelligence officer, and through me to the major and you fellows. At the same time, Air Force intelligence pumps this combat intelligence along with other intelligence up to the commanding General Air Force and the other members and departments of his staff, just as the heart pumps fresh blood up to the brain. For the commanding general and his staff are the Air Force's brain. They direct its contacts with other organizations. They do its overall thinking. They keep it functioning as a single coordinated unit. and they send out the orders that galvanize it into action. Well, that's one view of the whole process, fellas. Are you still with me?
For exactly 8.5 more minutes.
Okay. Now let's take another view of intelligence procedure. Starting up at Air Force headquarters with the commanding general and staff, when questions arise that must be answered before the commanding general can issue orders for an attack. Now, what I want you fellas to get is the relationship of these major questions to the scraps of information you bring in. Oh, one thing first. Now, don't get the idea that intelligence starts its procedure out fresh with each new attack. Remember this chart and its never-ending flow. New situations require new information. But all this happens against a background of standing operating procedure. The all-important routine I've just shown you for the perpetual collecting, interpreting, and disseminating of military intelligence. All right. Now for an example of how it works starting at the top. Let's say our North African High Command decides on a new plan of operations. Here we are then, in the brain, laying the background for our special intelligence program. The commanding general has called his staff together. Chief of Staff, A1, Personnel, A2, Intelligence, A3, Operations, A4, Supply. The Ground Forces Colonel and the RAF Group Captain are liaison officers. The commanding general has just broken the news to them that the attack on Sicily and Sardinia is to be made.
But, sir, an operation this large, this important, doesn't that call for a little more consideration?
It has been given consideration by GHQ, by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, by war plans, following research and study by all branches of intelligence. Let me see. It is 1900 hours now. We'll meet here again at 800 hours Wednesday. That will give us 37 hours.
37? But, General, I'll need a week. Why, it'll take at least a week to...
In 37 hours, gentlemen. All right, Steve, will you take over now?
Yes, sir. The Sicily half of the combined operations will be handled by the British, based in Tunisia. The job of the American forces will be Sardinia. First, our strategical force of heavy bombers will go to work on the most vulnerable and important objectives on the island. Those objectives, that's something for A2.
Most of them have already been spotted and photographed.
Also, of course, for the softening up, we'll continue blasting Genoa, Naples, Palermo, the whole Italian west coast, paying particular attention to airfields. A3 will have to work out his schedule carefully, because A2 will be needing some of our photo reconnaissance planes for special reconnaissance and mapping. Then, as to the attack itself, our tactical air forces will participate in the staging of a feint at local enemy positions to conceal our real goal. Shortly afterwards, our medium bombers will begin a 24-hour pasting of Sardinian airfields. Long-range bombers will pound all the mainland air bases to prevent reinforcements. And finally, the fighters will furnish escort for the troop carrier planes. The exact zones of attack have not yet been decided upon.
We shall want new mapping of the southern Sardinian coastline, particularly the gulfs of Palmas and Oristano, and Cagliari Harbor.
Yes, sir. And I'll see what we can learn about our probable reception there. We've had unconfirmed reports lately about some of the natives revolting against the Nazis. A situation like that could be very handy in the landing of paratroops.
Better note that, Tom.
Yes, sir. GHQ has also had reports that several new fighter squadrons have been moved into Sardinia.
We've had evidence in the mission reports. Some of the white-nosed 190 boys have been sent down from France. No definite identification of squadrons yet, but I think we can get that identification for you by tomorrow night, sir.
Dave, I could also use some dope on the enemy's auxiliary fighter drones and landing strips.
Now, we'd like to know if the enemy's disposed to hold his southern airfields against attack, or whether he's prepared a secondary line of air defense to withdraw to. If we can determine this, it'll have a most important bearing on our original strategy.
Well, that's what's going on in the brain. In 37 hours, each of these assistant chiefs of staff will have to report back to the general. A1 on men, A4 on supplies, A3 on operational plan, and A2 on the intelligence of the enemy, necessary to carry out the plan. The first step in the intelligence procedure is planning the collection of information bearing on the several particular questions. The essential elements. A2 will draw upon all its sources of information: combat, photo, prisoners of war, technical intelligence, or espionage and other secret sources, and on intelligence from headquarters of our own and allied ground, naval, and air forces. Now the Air Force A2 intelligence staff, the heart of our intelligence system, really gets going. To some of the essential questions, we already have the answers, either from previous intelligence missions or from standing operating procedure. So these can be set aside. Those questions that can't be answered, on which our intelligence is dated, incomplete or nil, are broken down into very specific clues. Let's take one example. The general wants to know if the enemy is disposed to hold his airfields in southern Sardinia against attack. Well, photo reconnaissance crews can't answer that, but they can spot certain clues which may enable this headquarters to answer it. To get these clues, an intelligence mission schedule is prepared, assigning the units for specific missions and setting a time limit for their completion. This is worked out in conference between A2 and A3.
Sir, this completes the mission schedule. Do you want to check it?
All right, thanks. Now on that last question, is the enemy prepared to hold on to his airfields? Jim, you've simply got to give me more planes for photo reconnaissance over Palmas, Cagliari, and Elmas.
Well, I've assigned you all the planes I can spare, Dave. Besides, you've already given us perfect coverage of those aerodromes.
That's not the point. I'm looking for new construction. Runways, new revetments, repair facilities, new housing. Anything he's building now.
But why? What's one or two more revetments?
Simply this, Jim. He wouldn't be building anything of a permanent nature at these southern airfields if he intended to use them only as a first-line defense and then move his aircraft north to other prepared aerodromes.
He might?
No. He wouldn't waste the time, the men, or the money.
That does make sense. Okay, fella, we'll get the photo boys to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
I want to find out if he has any unusual concentration of trucks or other transport. Anything indicating a move. I believe if he planned to move north, he'd have everything he won't immediately need already on the way. I want to see those roads leading north.
You're right, Dave. I'm sold. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll go with you and we'll get out these orders right now. We ought to deadline these photo missions for noon tomorrow.
That's the end of the first step. The intelligence plan is established, and the mission schedule is planned. This means putting into effect the intelligence plan. In other words, getting out the orders. Intelligence missions are put into operation the same way as any mission directed by the Air Force headquarters. By field orders, or fragmentary orders, giving concise instructions to the unit or units involved, right down to the particular photo reconnaissance squadron. The squadron CO and intelligence officer are just completing the briefing of pilots and observers. Listen.
Now you, Saunders, make a photo strip of anything that looks like runways, revetments, gun positions, and buildings. Then cover these roads running north.
Even those satellite fields in section C25, one of them throws heavy flak. Watch out for it.
But cover them. We want a complete picture of each section. You better go into 24,000 feet. Now you, Avery, you might get a strip of that D19 area from 15,000 feet on your way out if you don't spot any fighters. You've got your charts. Good luck.
At the same time, as per A2's mission schedule, other officers get orders. Some to attend to the mapping of sections of the Sardinian coastline. Others, specialists in prisoner of war interrogation, to focus on information about Sardinia in questioning captured Italian airmen. Crash intelligence officers, who are experts, examine a crashed enemy fighter and discover a new gun position. This new enemy gun might have given our attacking Air Force a lot of trouble, but not anymore. The flash report these men send into A2 will have our pilots and gunners ready for it. Here, another important role is played in the planning of our invasion. The weather officer's forecast will be included in A2's final estimate of the whole situation, and 0 hour might well be tailored to fit it. Meanwhile, every combat mission will also serve as an intelligence mission, with greater or less effect depending upon the efficiency with which we intelligence officers have briefed you fellows on important things to be looked for. and on how intelligently and searchingly we question you on your return. Enemy convoys, the number and kind of ships, their speed, the direction in which they're traveling, such things should be sent as flash reports by radio immediately. Enemy anti-aircraft defenses are noted. Their location, their number, the accuracy of their fire. Enemy airplane insignia spotted for the first time in that area, indicating new enemy squadrons. This discovery adds to our knowledge of the enemy order of battle. Finally, when collecting missions are completed, dozens of squadron intelligence officers like this one will make out their reports and start them on that journey upward.
That's the end of the third step.
Collecting.
Let's have another look at our organization chart. Now the squadrons get out their flash reports and mission reports.
These reports convey their information to Air Force A2, either up through the echelons which consolidate them, or directly to the top if they contain flash news, like the discovery of that new gun, the spotting of the enemy convoy, or that insignia of the new enemy squadron.
Now we get to the fourth step of our cycle. Well, how are you? Am I getting ahead of you?
Go on. We're groggy, but we're not quite out yet.
Well, just keep your eye on the list of steps. First, the intelligence plan. Second, getting out the orders. Third, collecting. And fourth, collating. After the information has been collected, the Air Force A2 staff collates it, which is textbook camouflage for classifying and recording. There's an old Army slogan: keep your eyes open, keep your mouth shut, and keep a copy. Obviously, all of this data that pours in must be recorded for the sake of future reference. So, let's go back to the heart, find out how A2 goes about this collating.
In the first place, all reports and communications are entered briefly in a staff journal. Then the same information is classified according to subject matter: tanks, enemy airdromes, flak, etc., and placed in a worksheet file ready to be drawn upon at a moment's notice. The sergeant here has just received a report on some new runways at Montecedro. The major is interested. He'll post the new information on the situation map in the air room. Maintenance of this air room is one of the most important functions of the intelligence staff. It provides a graphic display for the CG and his staff of all the information, much of it highly secret, which we have about the enemy. This includes a situation map, changed as often as necessary, and an enemy order of battle for airborne, showing what we know of his strength, units, and locations. And numerous maps and photo mosaics showing special targets, flak locations, supply routes, railroads, camouflage locations. And maps showing the location of our own units, results of our raids, etc. Everything of current interest finds its place on the constantly changed, constantly alive situation map, so that it provides a quick picture at all times of just what is taking place in this particular theater.
Now for the fifth step: evaluation and interpretation. That is, A2 cross-checks it for accuracy and credibility. It's already been partially evaluated by each subordinate headquarters as it passed through. But now in the light of information from all, it can be finally evaluated. At the same time, A2 performs its most important function, interpretation. All subordinate intelligence sections interpret as best they can for their own use. Air Force A2 does it finally and completely, thus transforming all of our information about the enemy into true combat intelligence. Let's take that essential question the general asked about the airfields in southern Sardinia. Will the enemy try to hold them or not? All right. Let's go back to our situation map in the air room and see what we've collected.
Here are the airdromes. Here is the new construction A2 wondered about. Photo reconnaissance gave us that. Here are the reserve ground troops, centrally located and within quick striking distance of the most obvious attack zones. And here's the enemy's new anti-aircraft defenses, guns, balloon barrages, searchlights. Interrogation of bomber crews pieced together from their mission reports gave us these. Now here are his major supply lines, overland and by sea. His ammunition dumps, his oil storage tanks, and no preparation to move them. And remember the convoy spotted by the pilot in that medium bomber? Well, here it is, heading into the Gulf of Oristano. Here are the best beachheads for our ground troops when the attack opens, as obtained for us by our photo mappers. And here are the enemy's active satellite fields, and an accurate accounting of the number and type of planes based at each of them. Now, there was something else we were looking for. Information which could only be got by somebody actually in the enemy country. Yes, we kid about these agents, call them the cloak and dagger boys. But they get us information we could get in no other way. Let's look in on one of these cloak and dagger boys in the Sardinian city of Iglesias.
Hypo, enter, Victor, unit, prep, Roger, Nagot, option, jig, love, tear, sail, easy, Z, affirm, king, William, queen.
All right, that's one more question answered. Now, what about the main question? Well, that new structure, those new gun positions, lack of transport on the roads, prove the enemy intends to hold those southern airfields. The rest of the information answers other questions. Now for the sixth and last step, dissemination. That means getting these answers out and up to the people who can use them most, out to the units, up to the general and his staff. Remember the date A2 and the rest of the staff had with the general in 37 hours? Well, let's keep it.
Well, that takes care of our gas and bomb supplies. Now, Fred, what about your reserve crews?
We'll have full-strength crews and replacements for every plane that A3 wants to send into action.
Fine. Good job, Fred. If I remember rightly, you thought it would take at least a week.
Well, I must admit, General, that I couldn't have finished the work myself. I only managed it through the help of A4.
Wasn't that bad? It isn't a sin, you know, for members of this Air Force staff to cooperate with each other. I'd like to see as much of that as possible. All right, now let's hear from A2.
Sir, before I begin, we had a flash report last night from G2 about our agent in Iglesias. As you know, we've had previous indications of unrest there, and this report, with several others, not only confirmed that, but plainly infer that if we landed paratroops in Poriosis, they would receive armed support from the local population.
Poriosis is directly connected with Cagliari by rail, isn't it, Davis?
Yes. And if our Air Force has got control of that line.
That's good news, Colonel. I'll follow it up at GHQ right after our meeting. All right, what else now?
Well, in general, sir, we find the enemy strongly situated. All our intelligence indicates that he will put up a stubborn resistance, that he will hold on to his southern airdromes rather than withdraw. However, he has his weak points beside Poriosis, and we've been fortunate in getting a pretty thorough line on them. For details on his ground and naval situation, I have here for you reports from G2 and naval intelligence. However, for the moment, let's concentrate on his air situation. He has 5 airfields within fighter plane range of any South Coast landing we could make.
So A2 goes into the meat of his estimate. He tells them of the location, type, and strength of enemy aerodromes, and of his anti-aircraft defenses, of the enemy's new equipment and armament, and of his supply lines and all other bomber objectives, and then finally of the enemy's capabilities, the different lines of action with
with which he would be able to respond to our attack. The estimate of how many air sorties from each of his airfields he can fly against us. In the particular line A2 has concluded he would be most favorably disposed to follow. All this comprises the intelligence estimate we pump up to the General Staff. And then the other members deliver their estimates. By that night, everything is set. Operations orders are okayed by Chief of Staff, and out they go.
At the same time, A2 completes dissemination of his accumulated intelligence, back out and down to all the lower echelons from whence some of it originally came up in unrelated scraps. It is pumped out in annexes to A3's field orders, in objective folders on enemy targets, and in periodic reports.
Well, 11 minutes are up. Then some.
I'll go on, Mac. Finish her up.
I was just beginning to feel important.
Yeah, me too. First time I ever felt intelligent.
How does it end, sir?
That's up to you, and every one of us. Just as every part of the human body contributes to its functioning as a whole, just so every one of us contributes to intelligence.
When this process ceases in our body, the result is death. If it ceases in a military organization, the result is also death. But when it operates continuously and perfectly, and the intelligence flow starts again, the result is death for our enemy.